Hi everyone, my name is Angelina Penkova. I'm one of the founders of People Portal together with Maria Podalski, who you can see on your screens as well. And the two of us are also the moderators and the facilitators of the Alive at Work community. This is a community of practitioners, of experienced professionals who get together every month to discuss topics related to organizational culture, building alive workplaces, creating alive teams, having meaning at work and thriving at work. And since there's a lot of content and a lot of talk these days on all kinds of channels and on all kinds of media, that culture is becoming the biggest competitive advantage of companies, we decided to start a community of people who exchange knowledge and experience and ideas, because culture tends to be a very abstract concept. And by inviting guests every month who give us their practical experience with building great organizational and team cultures, we try to demystify this concept a bit and to help everybody on our meetings to take what they find useful, what resonates with them, so they can implement it in their practice. And at the end of the day, we build stronger organizations where people belong, feel engaged. There's no talk of needing to have retention because people feel alive at work. And today we have the honor to be in the company of Damian Zhuklev and Krasen Kolev from Milestone Systems, who will be sharing with us a very exciting experiment that they started in their company about, a year ago or a few months ago. The experiment is called Building Empowered Teams. I'll give them the floor in a few seconds to tell you more about this. But just a few words about them before we start. Damian is Director of Product Development at Milestone Systems in Bulgaria, and Krasen is the Senior Engineering Manager who also works alongside Damian and manages several teams. They call themselves partners in crime because they started something very exciting a few months ago that's still in a pilot phase in their company. And this is the concept of empowered teams. And this is very, very important for me as a person. And I kind of resonated a lot with the story that Damian shared with me, because approximately 10 years ago, when I was transitioning slowly from an employee to a freelancer and then to a small business owner, I experienced the so-called mindset shift myself when I started to see my former employers who suddenly became my clients from a totally different perspective. And when Damian shared with me his experience that led to the creation of empowered teams, this really resonated very deeply with me. But today, those two gentlemen are here in our company, and they will share with us a little bit about why they decided to start empowered teams as a concept in Milestone Systems, how they did it, what was their journey, what are their learnings, what's their progress currently, and how they plan to develop this concept further. This meeting will have no slides, so we'll have the honor of seeing each other's faces on the screen. So whoever is able to switch on their cameras, please do, because it will be really great to be in your company as well. And please feel free to ask your questions in the chat. Also raise a hand. I'll make sure I get your question. And this will be a very interactive meeting with the two of them, because they want to get as many questions as possible and to answer from the standpoint of their own experience with building empowered teams. Welcome, Damian, and welcome, Krasen. The floor is yours. Please tell us a bit about yourselves and how this whole thing with empowered teams started at Milestone Systems Bulgaria.
Thank you, Annie. I'll just give the floor to Krasen now.
Okay, hi everyone. Really nice to be part of this event, and thanks a lot for inviting us. I know Annie and Mimi for a couple of years. I attended one of their trainings, and I believe we share a lot in terms of how we see value systems and culture and how they're being built. And we had a talk a couple of months ago with Annie about how we can really discuss something that's important for not just for the IT industry, but as a whole for all industries. And one of the topics that was in my mind was about empowered teams. I'm working closely with Damian for 8 months now at Milestone Systems, and this is one of our main goals. So it was a hot topic for us, and yeah, I'm very, very happy to share some more details around that. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, I also have to thank you for inviting us and letting us share our experience, but also hopefully get feedback from participants here, because whatever we share, please don't consider this is out of the book or you should copy it right away. We also went through the journey of learning ourselves how other companies are doing empowered teams or generate this kind of concept, and then we kind of use it with our own experience and figure out how to apply it in the company. I joined Milestone 2013, and before that and after that, I also changed. I changed a bit the industry several times. I always like to have a challenge because I believe this helps me grow and also see other perspectives. But because generally, even though there are different industries, different people, more or less it boils down to the same things, because we are people and we work with people. So yeah, that's basically
a little bit more about us. Yeah. So again, this is more, we would like to have interaction with all of you. So if you have any questions or anything that you'd like to us to dig deeper, please let us know. Any discussion will be really interesting for us. We're not here to give you a ready solution or a blueprint, more about sharing our experience, but also you sharing yours and in any particular problems that you're currently trying to solve. Will be very interesting in looking into those in detail. So please feel free to interrupt and to interact with us.
Great. So tell us, how did it all start and why? This is the question of the evening, of the afternoon. Why did you start this initiative? What made you do this?
Yeah, I would start with saying why empower teams at all. So I would turn things around and just say, would you imagine being in a startup your whole life? Because what are the benefits of a startup? You're pretty much empowered to solve customer problems, which more or less, I mean, once we have this mindset of solving other people's problems, meaning we make someone else feel better, we personally also feel quite well about it. I'm putting, of course, the business side a bit aside, also, I mean, the money, because it is, of course, I mean, that's why we have the startups, but the feeling of, you know, the motivation that you solve someone else's problems and people actually enjoy that is quite a nice feeling. So of course, it was a big, as I mentioned earlier, it was quite an interesting journey for me. I started from being in different industries, started with being in a Bulgarian company when we were doing things for the Ministry of Defense, then switched to a poker company, and then switched to Milestone, which is completely, again, different kind of industry. And then at some point when this is why I also, this is the example that Anya just also shared. After almost 4 years at Milestone, things were doing quite well, but I also at the point that I just wanted to try some things of my own before I raised my family. So because I felt a bit more free to have some of those risks. So I then decided to have my own startup with friends of mine. And this is why exactly before that I was on the mindset of being employed. And then I switched to, now I'm the employer/employee. And what is the environment that I really want to work in? What really drives me and motivates me? And that's the good thing about startups. You are in an environment where you decide. You have the power to decide. But of course, with power comes responsibility. So you're also responsible for the results and accountability. And basically, that creates a completely different mindset of doing things. And of course, I came back to Milestone. The startup wasn't successful, but at least I gained a lot of experience and which I can use now. And when I came back at Milestone in 2020, all that experience I wanted kind of to bring it Milestone. And I mean, this is how the empower teams idea grew in me. Again, I didn't feel myself prepared to run this in this to execute on this idea. So I had to read a lot of books and articles and ask other people how they're doing this. And then I kind of formed my own, I say my own, of course, it's not entirely my own, but just a plan in my head, what I want to execute. And then this is also the time where I got I got working, I got acquainted with Krasen, who I'm happy that he joined Milestone. And as you said, I knew partners in crime. Now we're trying to implement this idea and experiment this in Milestone, because this is how also Milestone was created as entrepreneurship company. I mean, when it was a startup-like company, it was really nice because this is exactly the feeling that we had. But the company, as most companies, when they are successful, grow quite rapidly, quite fast. And sometimes then you get the problems of, okay, we're too many people, the culture a bit changes and it gets more corporate-like. But we want to bring back the startup feeling, this entrepreneurial feeling in the big corporation now. So.
Yeah, just to add a little bit on that. So for me personally, I've been in very different roles. Most of my career spent in the IT industry, over 15 years. So different companies of size and scale, and different industries. So basically, my experience was built around how I would like to feel as an employee and as an engineer. And I've always strived for organizations where you're included. You can be heard, but also you can influence decisions. And this is something that's motivating for me. So I've always wanted to create this work environment around myself as a leader. And this is where actually we met with Damian and shared the common vision on how an engineering organization or an organization in general should be constructed and functioning. So it's a really important topic to me. I've been working in agile environment for about 10 years now, and I think the concept of empower teams is tightly related to the agile model of working. I know agile, it's been a hype word, and it became a dirty word because everybody's doing it, and quite a lot of people are not happy with actually putting label agile on everything. But I really see agile as a leadership philosophy first and most, and then as a process of work. So it's tightly related to that. I'm a big fan of the agile mindset, and this is the continuation on our side. We wanna achieve. Yeah.
Great. Well, I guess everybody is very curious in this meeting today to learn what you did. How did you proceed with this experiment? And I see that Petya is already impatient in the chat asking this question. What were the first steps you took in your experiment, and what did you learn from them? I guess you, at a certain stage of our conversations, you also wanted to introduce the terminology behind team and empowered, but feel free to take it from here and to tell us what you did with your teams.
Yes, I also like the question because we were going there in that direction. And but before saying what were the first steps, again, you said to align on the terminology because different people understand different things. And I just wanted to bring you to the desk here, explaining what we consider a team and what we consider empowerment for the teams, and then how we took the steps to, because there's a difference between teams and teams, and that's what I want kind of to bring this awareness. So first one, what is a team? A team is, I don't know how many of you know the different stages of teams. So we have the forming. That's the first stage in building a team. Then we have, the storming. And then we have the norming phase. And then we have the performance phase. You can cover it this way.
And I see already some smiling faces, so probably some people are aware of these concepts, but please carry on.
I'll be quick. In this phase, the most important thing is to build trust. And if a team is in the forming phase, I wouldn't recommend experimenting with empowerment, because there will be a lot of this upset people on both sides. Of course, feel free to experiment it. This is at least our experience, but I definitely wouldn't recommend it. The second stage, and by the way, the first stage, where I said building trust, the manager is really important. The role of the manager is really important in that stage, because the manager is the person that is responsible for building trust inside the team. Of course, people as well. Everyone is responsible in the team, but the ultimate accountability falls down to the manager. So, storming phase, of course, that's a phase that's a bit risky. You can still do some empowerment, and that'll be okay to experiment. But it's like, you know, I gave this example yesterday with kids. So first you transfer the responsibility without the accountability. So you just try out, is the person, in my case, was the kit ready? No? Then, but you need to check it. You need to test it with something small. If the person is ready, then, or in this case, the team, then you can transfer more and more of those responsibilities. That's also a way how to build the team much faster, because that team, then the storming phase is exactly the phase then the communication is built and people start knowing each other and confront each other, because in conflict, constructive conflict, good solutions, come out. So I'm not going to talk more about this one. I suppose other people on the call are also aware of another concept, which is, and then I'll shut up with those lecture style things. So we have also the concept of situational leadership. I'm sure all, if not all, almost all have heard this. I'll just briefly say, so first, in this corner, we have the delegation, the directing, or just instructing people what to do. This is also the stage in the forming. Sorry, I write a bit ugly, but it's just like
it's okay.
Yeah. So this is the place where also the forming team is. So we need as managers to instruct the teams, to help the teams a bit, get more confident with the experience, because this means almost no experience in the new environment. Usually in the storming phase, we are in the coaching area, which means the team has some experience now, but we need to coach them, because there might be situations that hasn't been lived in yet, but doesn't mean that we cannot use previous experience and apply it to the new thing and just again experiment. So coaching is really important in this phase, and this is again how moving past the forming phase. Sorry, the storming phase. Why this is important? This is the first stage of empowerment. You give something and then you see the result, and then you coach. Because without coaching, and this is probably called the first level of delegation, where you transfer a bit of a decision making and control, which is really important, but then monitor, provide regular feedback, and in a supportive way. No finger pointing, just a supportive way. And just for the sake of the conversation, I'm going to not go into details. So we have the supporting. Here we support the person or the team, and here we have full delegation. Absolute full delegation, and that is also full empowerment of the team. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, well, so in terms of empowerment and empowered teams, I just wanted to make a note here, because I know that there are people from different industries probably, and it's not the same everywhere. But just to bear in mind that empowered teams is a concept that requires a big amount of trust, and this comes top down starting from the leadership group or from the leader of the organization of the company. So just don't take this for granted. We at Milestone have the full freedom to do that, because there's a trust in the people above us, and we are we are empowered to do this experiment. So basically, when you are empowering people, you're sacrificing control. But we'll talk a little bit more about that later in our discussion. But yeah, just bear in mind that you need a particular, let's say, stage or maturity of the organization so that you're able to basically put the foundations for empowered teams.
What you also mentioned in our preliminary conversation is that, well, when you start a team from scratch, it's not the time to empower them from the very beginning, because you have to be very mindful about the stage of development that they're in order to start this empowerment process.
Yeah, and this is tightly related to motivation of people, because if you think about it, people are motivated by success, right? If you let people that are not experienced, or it's a new context for them, so basically they don't have the experience to be successful, and you just leave them be, right? Delegate, they will fail, and they will fail badly, and this will be a negative hit on their motivation. We want motivated people, so the support throughout the whole process of the management group, of the leadership, is very important. We'll be talking about management and leadership today, but these are both very important components of the foundations of empowered teams, because you need managers for certain requirements, but also you need a strong leadership, and this is basically the key ingredient for success in this particular case. Yeah,
and I think we can give examples, because I think we're getting closer to the question of what were the first steps, how things started. So I'll just say, before Krasen joined, what started as a process, and then I'll let him continue, because after he joined, he wasn't alone. There was also other people that joined after him in my leadership team, but we together are moving things. So before Krasen joined, the first step was, well, we have the goal. We want to move in a way so people are more independent in decision making, or deciding how I solve a problem, but basically also see where each team is and what is needed. So the first step was just analyzing the teams and what they do and how well they're doing it, how independent they are. And when I say independent, I need to stress here, it is not standalone silo in the company. It's still part of the bigger team, but have the autonomy to take some decisions that this team owns. So after analyzing those, of course, we saw different teams were in different stages, which is okay. That means different approach with each of the teams, and different level of empowerment as well. Then meanwhile, of course, as my role when I joined Milestone in 2020 was I was a group manager, which means I was leading teams. I was leading a leadership team, and which were leading individual contributors. So that meant more or less that my output is through my leadership team, which means I also analyzed the leadership team, how that team was doing, how in which stage the team was. So they were then, after using this data, the empowerment started in a different way. So the leadership team was also one that was just more or less in the forming/storming phase, which meant that most of the decisions that needed to be taken by me, but also I don't mean taking decisions that the teams the leadership team can take. I mean something that's a bit on a higher level than giving up the control. But this is the fun part: how you give up control and then trust that things will be done in the right way. That is, of course, quite tricky, but ultimately there is the outcome approach. So if there is a goal, it has to have a measurable result, something that is quite objective, and everyone agrees that this is something that this goal we would like to meet. And usually this involves numbers, so because you cannot argue with numbers. But then again, at some point, I realized that in order for me, things were moving quite slow, so I needed to up the experience of my leadership team, because as Klasen said, the most important thing when you have empowered teams or self-organizing teams, it doesn't mean we don't need managers. Actually, you need very experienced managers to drive the teams through this transformation. And this is when, life, we crossed our paths in life and in work. So I believe I can live from there how you felt when joining the company, the empowerment that you had, and what you actually saw when you joined as stage of the teams and so on.
So I'll start with a little bit of a storytelling. Before joining Milestone, I actually was working for about 6 months in a company where there was no empowerment at all. So it was a very, a negative experience for me as a person, because it was an environment where I was not able to apply my vision, my experience, and it was totally the opposite of what I was looking for. How I ended up with this job is another story. But the thing is that when I met Damian, we were discussing exactly this, how we see, we were comparing our view on how we see an organization functioning, and how we see what level of control we would like to apply, what kind of empowerment we would like to apply, and how we think we can achieve it. So to me, what matters the most is that the biggest change that comes to teams that are getting empowered is that they start thinking in a different way. Their focus moves from outputs and from working on particular features or products, projects, whatever, shifts toward the focus on outcomes, real results, something that's impactful and that can be measured and also contributes to the business goals and the business needs of the company, right? So throughout my career, I've been part of many teams, and what was lacking always was exactly that. How I can assess if I make an impact, how can I assess that I contribute to the strategic goals of the company? Because at the end of the day, organization or a company exists to create a profit. And this means that everyone in the company should be contributing to this goal. And
exactly. Yeah, going back a little bit to what Damian was sharing as well. Thanks, Krasi, also for jumping in and sharing your story. That was really cool. Tell us, once you analyzed the situation of the different teams, when you started working with your immediate team, the one that you were responsible for, what were the first steps that you took? How did you communicate with the team? What was the change that you introduced? And what did you do from A to B? What was the initial state, and how did you move the team towards the state that you were trying to achieve?
Well, the first phase was definitely observation. I spent a couple of months observing the team, how it functions, what's the output at this point of the time of the team, to see what's the contribution, and basically to understand better how we allocate resources and how we prioritize based on those resources. So there was a discovery phase, just to understand better. We found out that it's not really clear, like the team is working, there are some outputs like delivery, features, functionalities for the software product that we've been working on, but there was no real sign of if that's valuable or not for the organization. So the first thing that I wanted to do is to make exactly this visible to the team, so that they're spending a particular effort, time, and resources, but in the same time, we don't see the benefit. We don't see if we're creating a business value or not at the end of the day. So I put in place some very basic agile metrics so that we can understand better how the team functions. And then we did the same for the whole unit, because we have several teams in the unit. And we wanted to also see the bigger picture, and this led us to understand that we have too big of teams we wanted to split the teams in a smaller groups of people who have more focused context, where there is no need for them to context switch all the time, so that they be more efficient, but also makes it more visible when the teams are committing to particular goals. They have full focus on those goals, and then we can learn from any success or any failure, which was something that we lacked beforehand. Yeah.
Can you share, if it's not confidential, can you share what kind of KPIs, the agile KPIs that you put in place in the observation phase for the team?
Very basic ones like capacity versus velocity. This is very basic agile metric. Also metrics related to how we allocate resources across different the spectrum of different activities within the team. Do we have the right activities in the team? So I'll give you a very practical example with customer cases. There's no company, more specifically software company, where you don't have the case where you have a problem created for a customer. So we need to address that. We need to attend to those needs, right? But then it's also true that every organization has limited resources. So we need to prioritize better and to understand better how those resources are spent. So we can be fixing defects, let's say 100% of the time, but does this create value for us? Does this make our customers happier? Like, these were the questions that we looked answers for, and yeah, it appeared that we could do things differently. And this is a particular example for how we allocate resources across the different activities within the team. Yeah.
Right. And you mentioned that you needed to change the size of the teams. So you basically reshuffled a bit the structure of the teams and also the number of people in the teams. Can you tell us a bit more about that? Why did you know? Yeah, go ahead.
I'll just inject a comment here. So one of the reasons of this decision, and but I'll just explain the how. Yes, Carsten will explain better how. But what the decision is, a rule of thumb: a relationship is made 1% at a time, which means also trust is built 1% at a time. Mm-hmm. So it's much faster to build with smaller teams with less people instead of 8-10 people or above. So that's, yeah, I just wanted to kind of stress on this rule of thumb, because you can also see coaches are telling about this, but it's also the truth.
Yeah, but speaking about trust, it's also related to what you asked, Dani. It's about how we started with working with teams. Well, it requires working individually with team members, but also with the teams. But it's very important to have arguments and to be objective. And this is where the metrics come in place, because it's much easier to convince people when they can see it on the board or in a digital dashboard. This is data. These are facts. This is not something that we should argue about. And then we can make decisions based on those facts and on those data. And it's much easier to find trust with people, because you're not working with feelings or emotions, but with data and facts. So yeah, that was the part of the approach.
Okay, well, I'm really curious now. Please feel free to move on to another topic if it's not a relevant question for you right now, but I'm really curious to know, after you completed the observation phase and you collected all the data and you decided to reshuffle the teams and to kind of reposition and to change the number of team members in each team, how did you communicate this to the teams, and what did you tell them? Like, we're going to empower you from now on to be more autonomous and to make decisions on your own? How did the whole communication take shape once you had this map from your own leadership standpoint?
Yeah, well, this is one of the challenges. So if you're going into this direction, empowering people and teams, you should be prepared for that. Working individually with people, like why leadership is important, because it requires connecting to people. Each and every person is different. Each and every one of us have different expectations, views things differently. So this is why it's important to connect with each and every one from the teams and to convince them this is the right thing to do. And I'll be very honest again, I will say that there are people that are not buying it, like no matter what you do. But in the same time, we are striving for building an organization that where people are together in a mission, and they share values and they share vision. So I'm not talking about people that are thinking the same way. I'm talking about people that have the same value system, and they see the bigger picture in the same way. So yeah, there are people who won't be getting along with, and there will be people that won't be happy with any transformation. But then there's a big part of change management, and huge part of our job as managers with Damian is change management, which means that we need to learn to live with the change.
To introduce new concepts. Mm-hmm.
Yes,
I guess also Maria wanted to join the conversation at this stage. Maria, I don't see you. If you wanted to ask a question, yeah. Go ahead.
Yes, I wanted to ask something, but I forgot the question because I read the questions in the comments. But yes, I remember now the question. The question is, can you describe to us what is the ideal profile of a team member who is suitable to be part of an empowered team? Because this is something you can also probably use in recruitment or figuring out how to shift people around or so forth. Is there such a concept of characteristics that are more suitable, people characteristics that will be more suitable to be part of empowered teams?
Well, I don't think there's a certain type of people, I would say, but it really depends on what kind of people you're working with in terms of, are you building a team from scratch? That's the easier option, but also sometimes you have a team that you need to transform, and this team is used to working in a certain way, has a particular mindset, and this is where the big struggle is. I don't think that there's a particular type of people that you need to be looking for. It's more about people that are able to adapt, because the agile mindset is about continuous improvement, and continuous improvement means experimenting, learning, and changing. This is something that you do constantly. All the time, you put things on the trial, and it's an empirical way of working where you learn from what you have achieved and from your failures. Here we are trying to, at Milestone with Damian, we're trying to create an environment for so-called controlled failure, where people feel safe to fail, and we focus not on blaming or finger pointing, but rather on learning. This is part of our culture as a learning organization, not a performance-oriented organization.
Yes.
So people that are open to learn, they want to experiment, they can live with change, and they can adapt quickly. And also people that have the courage to challenge, because we are not here to only direct and micromanage, but also to work with people, and we are smart people, and we need to trust them, because if there's no trust, you cannot empower anyone. So if you ask me, what's the most important part of character, it's adaptability. People that are open to change.
Can I answer the questions, because it also ties up with yes, first one. Yes, we use the values first. as Klassen said, it's the culture of Milestone that we have this fail to safe environment.
Damian, let me just call out the question to everybody. Did you use the company's values on this journey? If yes, how? That's the first question, and thanks to Petya for this. Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
No, thank you. I actually had to read it, yes. Yes, we use them. So as I said, first we have this failed safe environment, which means we can experiment and safely fail. That also means that this also is valid for our team. So again, environment and the culture of the company is really important. And second, yes, we have the people first culture and mindset. This is also the values that we always put people first. And when we were doing the transformations as part of the change management, we always consider how we can involve people. It's not we take this direction and then you either follow us or not. It's us finding a way so we can involve everyone that's in the company as part of this journey. Or to answer the other way, what's in it for me, for everyone. And this was our way of using also the values.
Yeah. Values are the building block of an organization. So if we don't share values, we can't work as a team. We can't work. We'll be just a group of people sitting in the same room. We won't be able to follow the same mission. We won't be able to have a common purpose, because a team is a team when there is a common purpose and a particular reason for this team to exist.
And let me ask also the other question, which is around the results for the team itself, especially in terms of engagement, and how do you progressively alter the approach? Some people may feel threatened to be empowered, especially in a dynamic environment. Yes, actually, it's a really good question, because as I mentioned, we have teams which are with different people in those teams. Different teams are in different stages. We do have teams that are a bit more passive, that with really good engineers. That's people that are really good engineers, but just don't like to be on the driving seat, which is also okay. But that means that someone needs to fill in this void. So either the manager of that team needs to hire a person to change a bit the dynamics, or have this diversity in the team, or take this role for that team. And that team would be happy with less empowerment, and we should acknowledge that as managers. But there are other teams that have much more proactive people and self-driven people. These are the people that if we don't give the control to, we will lose them. They'll just go somewhere else. Yeah. That they'll get this empowerment. So yes, actually it is based on team per team. And that's why, again, I mentioned strong leadership is really important, because I expect experienced managers to be able to sense and deal with those kind of situations.
Yeah. Well, adding to this, some people feel threatened, but what we want to achieve here is to allow people to reveal their potential, and this is not possible if they don't believe in themselves. So it's all about self-confidence. Empowerment could seem threatening when you don't believe in yourself, and when you are not willing to take responsibility, because what is empowerment? It's all about trust. Two things. It's empowerment is about trust, and it's about competence. So in order to trust people, you should be confident that they're the right people and they have the competence. But also they need to believe in themselves, so that they're competent enough. And this is where it all starts, working with people so that they can feel confident, even if they're not well prepared or they lack some competencies. We're here to support them so they can grow, they can build on top of what they already have. But there's certain people who are running away from this responsibility, because it's very easy to have the manager being accountable and responsible in the same time. In Bulgarian, we have the same word for responsibility and accountability, but those are different things. So yes, managers are accountable, but when you're empowering teams and people, they become responsible for the results, for their own development, and for their contribution to the business goals. And then this also reflects to any other component of their expectations as an employee.
Can I also just turn things around a bit? So threatened, I mean, if there's trust, there shouldn't be any threat at all. That's first. And second, yes, some people might feel uncomfortable when we are putting them outside their comfort zone, but that's how we grow people. So this is also a controlled way of growing people, how much we push. If it is too much, it could be, of course, some people will just snap, but others will, if we take it slow for some people and maybe fast for others, depending on the personality, then there will be no threat at all. It will be just, I feel I'm growing and I have the support from my manager.
Yeah.
But it's also our role to push people outside their comfort zone because we want people to grow. This is one of the most important things that why people stay in a company. If I don't see I'm progressing here, then I'll just leave probably.
Great. We do have two more questions in the chat, but I guess these are perfect bridges for what was to come next. And it's a bridge from the topic of responsibility. Basically, I would say that the topic of responsibility has two branches. One is the leader being able to delegate this responsibility, so the delegation topic, and the other one is the person, the employee, being able to embrace the responsibility. So can you tell us a bit more about the OKRs, the goal-setting system that you put in place? And I guess this is related to Michal's question, but I'll read it out loud because it might have a little connotation that's different from what I just said. How to translate the mapping of skills for scaling a team with regards to empowerment? Do you have any specific formal, measurable techniques for selecting competencies, maybe specific internal KPIs?
So yes, so first of all, before empowering people, we just need to have the framework in place. And we decided to use OKRs, or objective and key results, not because it's the modern thing to use, but because of how simple it is in terms of usage, but at the same time it's not that easy to master. But that gives room for experiment for each company to adopt based on the company's culture, the right way of OKRs. But most important thing with OKRs is we have objectives, this is what we want to achieve. Now everyone has a goal, or I mean, in a startup, what is the thing that binds all people? It's the product vision or the vision of the company, which is we have the same goal. All of us feel this is our goal and we need to achieve it as a team. So that's really important. And having a product vision and then a joint goal, that's the first step of then, I mean, starting to work with. And then key results is the thing that is, maybe I could say, for leadership. So if I see those results, then I trust that the team has actually accomplished that goal. And this is how I feel comfortable delegating, that decision making to the team, how to achieve that goal. Because I have a clear way, and that's quite objective in most time, how I can measure that we have success here. It's not that easy. It's challenging. It's our third quarter with OKRs. We're getting better, but also we acknowledge where we have some, we can improve.
We have drawbacks.
Yes, we can drawbacks and so on, but it's helping us to know, okay, now we're actually getting something. We're getting actual results, an outcome. And just for again, terminology, outcome usually is changing a behavior, either of an employee or a customer or a stakeholder. I mean, the key result should be something that, because if we don't change a behavior or an action, then we should not expect a different result from what we have already gotten, right? That's why we need to change the behavior, to do something differently. So in our case, we had OKRs and we had KPIs. KPIs are how we measure health. So we have the KPIs, and some of those Prasen already mentioned earlier. Either do we get more customer cases, for example, and why, and so on, because this is what is, I mean, it's a high priority if we have a problem there. Otherwise, if everything is healthy, or maybe I can use another thing. If we want to go somewhere by car, we would use the GPS for direction, and we have the goal, but then we also see where we have enough gas in the tank. The tank is the KPI. If we have low gas, then obviously we won't be able to reach that goal. So the KPIs is how we measure, again, our health. OKRs is setting a common goal to the teams. And this is when this is becomes so easy then to flatten. That's why I have drawn in this way. You flatten the organization. It doesn't need to be so many layers. Of course, we might have several layers of management. Doesn't mean that the team should not communicate with each other directly, because the most important thing with OKRs, they are transparent, and transparency means commitment and accountability. And also, if key results are not met, this is also the culture. Instead of pointing fingers, now let's discuss what we can improve so next time we meet those key results. And that is the learning culture, how we grow. So it's very important also to announce the failures in a way that it's there constructed.
So also related to this question of mapping skills for scaling a team with regard to environment. Yeah, so it's much easier for team members to find their personal development goals this way, because when you have the team objective, when you have a particular goal that you'd like to contribute to, you then self-assess how your abilities, your skills, and are you really able to contribute to this? And then if you want to contribute, you need to learn so that you can contribute, you can achieve particular result. And this builds a list of achievements for every person, every team member. And for a manager, it's much easier to build a business case for their career development, going further, having this list of achievements built already, rather than, and this is where actually we connect. This is the connecting point between personal development, individual personal development, and the OKRs. How can I contribute to the common objective? Do I have the right skills? Do I have sufficient skills and abilities? Maybe I need to invest in that. And this is where also people are empowered to take responsibility for their own career development. Because in many traditional organizations, this is implicitly or explicitly is set in the list of responsibilities for the manager. But here, we would like to see each and every one of our teammates, team members, to take full responsibility for their personal development. And we're here to support them by all the resources provided by the organization, by the company. So, yeah.
So do you take this input from the people who say that they want to deal with a certain topic in the team but are still not competent enough? Do you use this input for their learning and development plans within the company right now? Do you empower them also in this way? Okay,
yes,
great.
Yes, definitely. Because to me, it's a huge problem when those two components are not attached. Like we have the objectives, but we have in parallel we have the personal development of people, and this is by using OKRs and by empowering people, we make this connection.
Can I also answer the last two questions, because it more or less ties to...
Yes, just please make sure you read them out aloud for everybody.
Yes. So first one is how do you support people that struggle with confidence but have the abilities? Do you have any success stories in this area? And the other one is how do you move on with people who, being empowered, do too much mistakes and do not learn and improve or grow very slowly? So it's kind of the two sides of the coin. So the first one, yes, it is for those people that have the abilities but don't have the confidence. We need to understand, and that's why I mentioned we have to have really strong managers. I know that it takes some time. You probably, I mean, me and Krasen read a lot of books, even on psychology, because of that thing. But that's why a lot of companies also have the people and culture or HR organizations, which we can ask for support there, how to better read people. But basically, it depends on the situation. If the person is just too shy, then that's something that we can work with in a different way. But the most important thing when people get confidence is when they see success, some victory, even if it's a small one. It's a victory that raises the confidence, and it's up to us to set people in situations or in an environment that they can see that success. I know sometimes it might be understood as manipulation, but it's in a good way, because then we help people go through this stage, this fear of I'm not confident to do those things. And there's the other side that I want to be empowered. I'm not that much competent, or there's other things. I'm just too scattered, but I just want to do a lot of stuff. And all those is, pardon my French, crap.
Yeah, I use very simple approach to this one. Very brief. Just give positive feedback to people. When we are talking about feedback and feedback loop, people usually are talking about areas for improvement, things that didn't happen the way they were supposed to happen, mostly in a negative way, right? People, when we think of feedback, it's usually a negative feedback. But there's a very rare case where people give positive feedback. So giving a positive feedback to someone can dramatically increase their confidence in themselves.
Yes.
Even because people tend to, we as people tend to diminish our successes, our wins, but focus mostly on our failures and on the negative side. So it's a very simple approach. Just give a positive feedback anytime there's a small victory or small win to any team member.
And sorry for the terminology again and some lecturing, but there's also kind of a rule of thumb. 4-1 is the ratio, 4 positive feedbacks and 1 negative, or constructive as it's called in leadership. And that doesn't mean in one meeting we should do all of these, but basically kind of keep mental note to kind of, mix those. It shouldn't be, I know that there is some things, the writings about this sandwich, one good, one bad, one good. I don't also believe in this one, but the ratio of, when you use something positive, share it, but should not be also only positive because it's overconfidence and no growing at all. There should be room for constructive feedback. But again, 4-1 is the ratio. And then I would, just to answer on the not warn, people don't warn if you don't stop and reflect. If we just move ahead, next thing, then no one will warn. So all those mistakes that were a person that might make, if the manager doesn't sit down with that person and reflect on why those mistakes happen, then I don't believe it will warn. If, of course, even after that, the person doesn't warn, then probably I would ask HR or PNC for help and how to get closer to that person and figure out a way to grow.
The next one is about how do you move on with people who actually by being empowered to do too much mistakes. Like there's no
I think you covered this as well.
Too many mistakes. It's more about observing if the person is learning from the mistakes. If they're doing the same mistakes over and over again, probably we have a problem there. We need to discuss particular topics like what's the approach to repetitive tasks and why we do the same mistakes over and over again. So there's no learning basically. If there's learning, there's no such thing as too many mistakes. If the mistakes are different because people are doing different things, they are having different activities in their day-to-day assignments, it's totally acceptable. But if it's the same thing, we don't have learning there, so it's a problem.
I guess it's also very important what you mentioned in the very beginning of the conversation, that especially when empowering people and giving them more autonomy to deal with different situations on their own, you also need to have an environment of a controlled failure. So when you give them tasks or you give them OKRs that are within this environment of controlled failure, it's okay to observe this learning or lack of learning, because it's not at the cost of the company. So it's also very important, if you empower them, to empower them in the right approach that doesn't put the company in a big risk. I also wanted to ask you, but I see that Michal wrote something in the chat. I'm not sure if that's a comment or a question, so I'll ask him to unmute his microphone if he wants to ask a question. But I also wanted to ask you about the feedback loop, because you mentioned about the way you do feedback, how you talk to people, what kind of feedback you give, the positive versus constructive ratio. But in the preliminary conversation, you also mentioned about the fact that you had to redesign the whole feedback loop for the empowered team, where people give each other direct feedback instead of going through the manager. Can you talk a little bit more about this, because it ties into the previous topic?
Yeah, I think this is crucial, because when we're talking about empowered teams and self-organizing teams, it means that we're also changing the role of the manager. We're going away from the traditional command and control management style, where the manager is directing and it's giving orders, it's allocating tasks to people, assigning tasks to people, allocating resources, but we don't want to do that. We want to have empowered and self-organizing teams, which means that we need to create a self-balancing ecosystem. What does it mean? It means that the first round of feedback loop should be within the team. So there's no, to me personally, there's no, the most valuable feedback comes from your peers, people that you're working with on a daily basis. In this model, the manager is not working on the daily tasks with the team. So the most valuable feedback will come from your peers. And it doesn't make sense for the manager to be a proxy for this feedback loop. So direct feedback coming from your peer is the way to go. And this is where we want to educate people to do so. Like, if there's a particular case, or is there a positive or negative feedback that you want to bring on the table, just give it directly to the person in a formal or informal way. Do one-on-one with your teammate, or go and grab a coffee and have some talk together. It doesn't matter, the format. But it matters that you're giving your feedback situationally, directly, and based on actual facts, objectively. Instead of going to the manager and sharing your feedback for other team members to the manager, so then the manager could be using those on one-on-ones so that he can give the feedback to the other person. And this is a very, I would say, bad practice. I don't like it. So if there's a way to learn and to improve, this way is 90% based on the direct feedback from your peers. So in regards to that, the feedback loop should be, the first round should be within the team. It's a challenge for some people. People are not used to be giving objective feedback without without being concerned about the reaction, because at the end of the day, reaction to a feedback is not our responsibility. It's responsibility of the one that's receiving the feedback. So giving and receiving feedback is a fundamental thing when we're talking about empowered teams and self-organizing teams. The role of the manager is very different here. The manager is coach. The manager is a person that observes and can be switching leadership styles based on the situational leadership concept, where you can be directing or micromanaging, whatever it's addressing the needs of the team or the individual, because there's nothing wrong in doing something that addresses particular needs. The second thing about feedback is sharing your needs as a team member, as an individual, because without that, nobody can help you with whatever you're struggling with. It's either a personal problem, it's something that you don't feel comfortable with in your workplace or team members, whatever. You need to share your feedback directly to your manager or to the peers so that someone can address it. There are people who are, introverts and they don't like to share, but this is crucial for, empowered team to be successful. And self-regulating teams, self-regulating ecosystem should be demanding in a way that people are challenged when they don't do so. It's not the manager's job to challenge people. People should be challenging themselves and should be holding accountable themselves. Rather than going directly to the manager.
Easily said than done, but I can give two examples. Of course, Krasen can talk about his teams, but I currently have, to be honest, two teams. One of the team is, of course, my leadership team, who Krasen will say if he feels empowered or not. And now we have an audience, we can admit whether what we're talking about is nonsense or not. So we have the leadership team, and also as an interesting project, interesting idea, we have a team that is entirely comprised of students. So these are people, for some of them, this is their first job. And we're taking the same approach there. Why I'm saying this is, I believe the Empower Teams is working. First, with the leadership team, I finally feel that I don't need to be on top of everything, because then, I mean, I trust the team, and then we have also a framework how we can measure are we moving. It doesn't mean that we meet every quarter. Of course, the OKRs are quarterly, but then again, we meet every week to see how we're progressing. And instead of all the stand-up meetings and so on, since the teams have the same goal, they work together, and then we see the progress together. And with my leadership team, as I said, I am off the things that are happening in my unit. I mean, not hands-on, let me put it this way, just being involved, but not that hands-on. The same with the students team. So those guys managed to get to work together as a team so fast that the work I had in my mind planned for them for 6 months, they managed to do it in less than 2 months, which is great. Of course, some of them, I can see them there in the code, they can share their experience if they feel this empowerment and ownership of their work. But at least from my perspective, things are working.
So
that's great.
We started with why we decided to go forward with empowered teams, because we're allowed to do so. We have the freedom to do so. But also there's a particular problem, because most of you will be asking, well, you're doing it, maybe you have some success, but actually what's the problem that you're trying to solve? The problem is that we want to move fast. We want to be agile in the very meaning of the term, and also we want to to have people that are working toward creating an impact. People are talking always about innovation, about creating new products, but how you can be certain that you're creating the right thing when you're not empowered to make decisions, when you're just executing on features that are coming in the
prioritized order.
Yeah, in a list of tasks and assignments, rather than giving the teams a particular business problem. Let's say we want to achieve 20% more customer satisfaction. That's easily measurable. Or we want to reduce 30% of our customer cases. This is again something that we can measure very easily. But we're just putting the business problem on the table and let people find the solution. We don't want to solutionize it for them. And this has it has a positive impact on the business, but it also has positive impact on people, because it's challenging people. People should be challenging themselves to learn and to improve and to learn new things, so that they can find better solutions for the problems. And this is the biggest mindset shift related to empowered teams. You're giving full responsibility, you're giving the driving seat to someone else as a manager, but then this is based on trust, on competence, and in the same time gives the field for growth for the people in the teams and the organization. So this is the problem that we want to solve. First, to make a real impact, because our unit is part of a bigger organization. We're a smaller organization. That's why we're creating this environment of micro startups where people can challenge themselves and they can skyrocket their careers if they want to. But they're in the driving seat, so they decide what they want to do. We want the end result. We want the problem at the end of the day to be solved. And it's a matter of their creativity and their commitment to achieve it.
Otherwise, why we hire smart people, right?
Yeah.
Right.
It's a cliche, but it's true. Like if you have people who you are not challenging enough, why you hire those kind of smart people? You need to challenge.
Right.
Yeah.
You need to make use of them.
Yeah.
and make them feel alive at work, right?
Yes.
Okay, what a great way to wrap up the conversation. There's about 5 minutes left until the end of this call. I do have a few more questions for you. You mentioned that by optimizing the feedback loop, basically you made people from your teams in a position to communicate directly and to share feedback directly, which pretty much eliminated the role of the team leader as a middle point, delivering feedback from one person to another or collecting all the feedback from different team members about other team members. And this basically allowed you, Krasen, to now be a team leader of 3 different teams, which is not very often, in different organizations. So tell me, how is this possible for one person leading empowered teams to actually lead 3 teams instead of 1? And what's the difference?
Yeah, well, it was not a planned thing, but yeah, it's something that I've done before. It's a challenging task, but in the same time, it also depends on how you structure things and how you build the organization around your role. If you want to be involved, heavily involved, and you want to be really hands-on with what's going on in the team, well, it's not possible. But then, if you build the communication channels in a way that the information is coming to you as a manager rather than you going to the information, attending each and every meeting or reading tons of emails and going through all the instant messaging chats throughout the day, well, you basically won't have any time for anything else, right? So the whole point of the feedback loop is to be on top of things and to be involved, but not to be hands-on in a way that it's consuming all of your time. And this also means that you should rely on informal leaders and building those leaders in your teams. It's another form of delegation where you develop people with leadership potential, delegating them in formal leadership role, where of course, it's based on trust, it's based on their competence, so they're seen as leaders by the other team members. So working with those kind of people, you're building a network that is also used as a communication network. And this is how the information flows to you, rather than you going to the information and wasting all of your time. So it really depends on how you build it's of course this is valid for every scale. I personally work with 3 different teams, but then you can consider Damian working with 6 indirectly. But then we have the VPs, we have the C-suite, we have the CEOs. Those people, they can't be hands-on with each and every one, each and every project, team, or product in the company, right? So this is how you build communication channels, and this is how you, well, in my personal case, this is how I do it. I rely on informal leaders within the teams. So these are people like I trust the most, trust in a way that they can make certain decisions. I'm accountable at the end of the day for those decisions, but this is also part of the delegation. They're responsible, I'm accountable at the end of the day. It's growing them, it's easing me.
Yes.
Can I share a real-life example?
Yes, please do, and that will be our final words for today because we're a bit late. Yeah, go ahead, Damian.
Just to simplify things about empowerment, we said so many times, it's delegation. So I'll just say it another way. I have 2 kids at home. I have my son is almost 5 years old, and we just have a baby. So I'll give the example is with my son. We have my wife is, since it's a son, I guess it's right that it's mommy's son. I don't know how it can be translated in English, but she's like super attending him, which means if he needs to go to the restroom for number 2, let's say, she's helping a lot. And I'm the one that he just, first time I showed him how, second time I showed him how, third time I just let him go alone, which means responsibility now is in his hands. Accountability, of course, if he messes up, it's going to be me cleaning up after him. But it's going to happen a few times. This is the failure thing. But I'm just happy to say that when he turned 4 years old, he was entirely independent. Going there. Yes, it still takes him about half an hour to stay in there and do all the things, but it's not me doing it.
What a fun example, and I think it's the perfect ending for this conversation, because essentially we're all human beings. So no matter if we're at home or we're at work, the similar, human things apply, and social interactions apply. So first of all, congrats on making him independent from such a young age. Well, thank you very much for joining us today. I think we've had a lot of questions in the chat. I think we do have one more question. Maria, do we have a question in the chat that we need to cover?
I think that it's a wrap up or comment from Mihai, so not really a question.
Thank you very much. Thanks for everybody who stayed till the end. We'll send an email to all the people who register for this meeting with the LinkedIn profiles of Krasen and Damian, so you can get in touch with them directly. We'll also share some of the articles and the resources they sent us for empowered teams for you to get acquainted with this topic in more detail. And until next time, please keep in touch. Thanks very much for joining us today. See you next month, everybody. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.